Srimad Bhagavatam 5.11.9 5.11.9 through 11. Verse 9. Ekadashasan manaso hi vrittaya akotayah panchadhiyobhimanah matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasha veera bhumi. Ekadasha, 11. Asan, there are. Manasah, of the mind. He, certainly. Vrittayah, activities. Akutayah, senses of action. Pancha, 5. Dhiyah, senses for gathering knowledge. Abhimanah, the false ego. Matrani, different sense objects. Karmani, different material activities. Puramcha, and the body, society, nation, family or place of nativity. Dāsam, of those functions. Vadanti, they say. Ha, O, Ekadasha, 11. Veera, O hero. Bhumihi, it's not bhumihi, bhumihi, it's a plural. Fields of activity. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: there are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. I think you ought to reduce the volume a little bit. There is a feedback coming up. O hero, the objects of the senses, such as sound and touch, the organic activities such as evacuation, and the different types of bodies, society, friendship, and personality are considered by learned scholars the fields of activity for the functions of the mind. Please repeat. There are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. O hero, the objects of the senses, such as sound and touch, the organic activities, such as evacuation, and the different types of bodies, society, friendship, and personality, are considered by learned scholars the fields of activity for the functions of the mind. Purport: the mind is the controller of Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll read the three verses together. So purport, the mind is the controller of the five knowledge acquiring senses and the five working senses. Each sense has its particular field of activity. In all cases, the mind is the controller or owner. By the false ego, one thinks oneself the body and thinks in terms of my body, my house, my family, my society, my nation, and so on. These false identifications are due to the expansions of the false ego. Thus, one thinks that he is this or that. Thus, the living entity becomes entangled in material existence. 5.11.10 गन्धाकृतिस्पर्शरसश्रवांसि विसर्गरत्यर्त्यभिजल्पशिल्पाः एकादशं स्वीकरणं ममेति शय्यामहं द्वादशमेक आहुः. Sound, touch, form, taste, and smell are the objects of the five knowledge acquiring senses. Speech, touch, movement, evacuation, and sexual intercourse are the objects of the working senses. Besides this, there is another conception by which one thinks, this is my body, this is my society, this is my family, this is my nation, and so forth. This 11th function of the mind is called the false ego. According to some philosophers, this is the 12th function and its field of activity is the body. Purport, there are different objects for the 11 items. Through the nose we can smell, by the eyes we can see, by the ears we can hear, and in this way we gather knowledge. Similarly, there are the karmendriyas, the working senses, the hands, the legs, genitals, rectum and mouth, and so forth. When the false ego expands, it makes one think, this is my body, family, society, country, etc. 5.11.11 द्रव्यस्वभावाशयकर्मकालैर् एकादशामी मनसो विकाराः सहस्रशः शतशः कोटिशश्च क्षेत्रज्ञतो न मिथो न स्वतः स्युः. The physical elements, nature, the original cause, culture, destiny, and the time element are all material causes. Agitated by these material causes, the 11 functions transform into hundreds of functions, and then into thousands, and then into millions. But all these transformations do not take place automatically by mutual combination. Rather, they are under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. One should not think that all the interactions of the physical elements, gross and subtle, that cause the transformation of mind and consciousness are working independently. They are under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Krishna says that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto mattah smritijnanam apohanam cha. As mentioned here in Super Soul, Kshetrajna is directing everything. The living entity is also Kshetrajna, but the Supreme Kshetrajna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the witness and order giver. Under his direction, everything takes place. The different inclinations of the living entity are created by his own nature or his expectations, and he is trained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the agency of material nature. The body, nature, and the physical elements are under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They do not function automatically. Nature is neither independent nor automatic. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is behind nature. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So, you won't find a better clarity in the field of psychology than this. In the universities, we have so many departments of knowledge, and people there major in the minor. You know what is called? What is that? They're majoring in the minor. That means in one minor aspect of knowledge, they try to major in that. Oh, I'm a major in psychology, I'm a major in history, they try to major in the minor. Whereas Vaishnava way of gathering knowledge from the Vedas is to know about all subjects. That's why it is called, there is this verse, Krishna says, Yo mam evam asammodho janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. 15:19 of Bhagavad Gita. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. We have to know, we cannot be simply in the bliss of our own ignorance, like the donkey. Donkey is very happy, but they say ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss only for a very short while. The goats, they are put in line for the sacrifice. So when the goat's turn comes, he is brought onto the block and sacrificed. But the next goat is happy nibbling on the grass. So that may be bliss for the time being, but how long will it last? Ignorance is finite bliss. We may say like that. Minuscule, finite. If you want infinite bliss, you may say, there is no such thing as an infinite thing. Well, you have, what is that called? Resigned to the fact that, resigned to the idea that, okay, it's all anyway going to be destroyed. So while I have it, enjoy it. So this is hedonism. Then why does morality matter then? Why do we need to act in ways which are morally right? Doesn't matter, because anyway, one life, live it king size, and then finish off, why this is right, this is wrong, and why should I be worried about the consequences? I can just do anything. So that's the bliss they want to live in, the ignorance. Oh, where I have the freedom of doing anything. It's an illusion of freedom. Yes, we have the agency or the freedom to do anything we want, but we do not have the agency or the freedom regarding the consequences of our actions. That's not within our purview. So we have to decide our actions depending on what consequences we want. For example, we try to study hard and pass out with flying colors from the university. Why? Because we stand a better chance of being accepted into a good company or somewhere where I can get a good salary. The selection of the interviewer is not within my control. I have agency on how much I can put in effort to study. And, not just study means theoretical, but also practical. But the interviewer, whether he will select me or not, that's up to him. Yeah? That consequence I do not have freedom on. I do not have power over that. But I can stand a better chance if I qualify myself. So, similarly, when a criminal does something which is, this is the opposite of that. If I study hard, there's kind of, in this material world, positive way of living. And the negative way of living is to commit crimes and, go to the court, be sentenced and be jailed, or even be hanged. That's the other route. So even then, even as a criminal, I have agency on the actions I can take. I can choose to do whatever I want, but what sentence I will be getting, that's not within my power. The judge, the judiciary, the police department or the prison department, they have the power. So there are laws that we need to adhere to. And who created those laws? Krishna created. The one who created this world also created the laws that come with it. Yeah? They're not, or now scientists, they try to understand this world as if they are just a interaction of matter and laws are coming from it. But you know how paradoxical that is? Just recently I was watching this video on this scientist explaining about quantum physics. And he was explaining that when you try to understand at the atomic scale, you may be able to explain things using quantum physics. But that same knowledge, that same theory, because everything in this world is created, is made out of atoms. So if I can understand the atom, I may be able to understand the whole picture. That's the idea they went with. And then they try to understand the atom. They got a theory now to explain everything in the atomic scale. And then they zoomed it out and tried to explain everything at the cosmic scale as well. Failed miserably. They cannot explain even gravity. We learned in our school physics that gravity is when you have mass and then it attracts. That's the Newtonian law of gravity. But Einstein's relativistic definition of gravity is different. He says it is a bending of space-time. It's a curvature of space-time. Quantum physics explains everything seemingly for them, but actually it doesn't. Because there are so many anomalies and paradoxes that it comes to where they cannot explain it. And they accept that they do not know what is the theory of everything. And in quantum physics, they can't even explain what is gravity. Something that we experience every single day. So this proves this point which Prabhupada said here, that the Bhagavatam also says that it is not happening automatically. It's not that all the atoms come together and it's all homogeneous, the whole laws of universe. No, it's not. Like the cow is eating grass, which is not very rich in nutrients. But the milk that is being produced is full of nutrients. So what is happening? So that transformation, even the cow doesn't know how it is happening. We don't know how energy is being formed in our body just by eating food stuff. We are just enjoying putting things on our tongue. But we don't even know how it is going inside and how it is transforming into energy and how all the different parts of the body are working. Even the doctors do not know. They explain, of course, the digestive system and all that. But when they go deeper and finer, they cannot explain things anymore, even in our body. They give a hodgepodge theory of evolution, and how do you think evolution is, how can something evolve in a way that I don't even know what is happening? So it's very, very defective theory. So that is a scientific way of looking at it. Then the philosophical way of looking at it is they try to philosophize various philosophies and psychology. These are very hugely speculative because they don't have much information on how these things work actually. It's very subtle. But here you will find, we are reading fifth canto. It's a historical narration, a conversation between Rahugana and Jadabharat. We are studying history. And in the history, we are now studying psychology. What is the mind's fields of activities? How the mind works? Is it not important to understand? Just imagine the social media platforms which keep us hooked for hours in a day. Who is actually the brains behind not the technologists? They're not the brain behind it, the psychologists. Because what will keep our mind glued? They want to keep our mind controlled, trap our mind. Um, they increase the mode of passion. You see this. I think here is the classic example of the mode of passion. Is it this one? Let me see. Material desire, great endeavor, audacity, dissatisfaction even in gain, false pride, praying for material advancement, considering oneself different and better than others. No. There is this verse in the 11th canto which says the symptom of mode of passion is that we cannot withdraw our senses from the sense objects. 11, 19, 40. Is this the one? Maybe. Let's see. No? Not this. Okay. Unable to withdraw. How come I forgot this? Unable to withdraw. I don't know how to find it now. It's the mode of passion. Any verses which describe the mode of passion from the 11th canto? Maybe somebody can help me with that. Okay, so anyway, coming back to our point. So the mind, so the social media platforms, psychologists are the ones working behind that. And then the technologists, they just follow what the psychologists say. Okay, this is what you have to do. Okay, I'll do it. So they just write the code for it. So psychology, that means the subtle aspect is more important. Now here we have an explanation of mind and the field of activities of the mind that is not properly explained in other fields of psychology or whatever. So universities are majoring in the minor. Each person learns a small subject matter and goes deep into that, and even then he cannot understand because he does not relate it with the Lord. How can you understand something when you don't understand its creator? You don't even know, even if they find out how everything works, they will never understand why everything works. Why is the creation even made? They may even explain, one day come up with a theory of how everything works. Even then, how are they going to explain why everything works? Why is the creation even made? Why am I here, even here? So many things they cannot explain. They are seeing a very, very minute slice of the entire truth. And from that, they try to extrapolate and try to understand the whole situation. They cannot. They just cannot. They don't have the wherewithal to do that. So we have the best way to understand anything is to understand from the person who created it. Like when a mobile phone comes or any product comes, there's a manual that comes with it. Who does the manual? The creator of the product. And of course, after that, when some people play with the product enough, they may also understand how to use, maybe. But inside how it is working, still they may not know. So, but the manufacturer, he knows everything, how it works, why it is created, why is the product, because every product that is created has a purpose for why it was created. Not that, Let's create something and see what comes out of it. No. Purpose there is. So similarly, we should know why was the creation even made. The scientists still cannot explain from, they say evolution of life, but from what was the point where matter started to become life? When was the point? They cannot say. Until now, they don't have answer. You search the biggest research papers and thesis everywhere, you will never find an answer. They cannot explain, and they just glaze over it as if it's a matter of fact. Yeah, matter of life came. They just combine together and so unicellular organisms, multicellular organisms, and it all came like that. Yeah, what is that? Simple. But actually, you stop them there and ask how this matter became a living entity. You ask them. You show me what is the metamorphosis that happened which transformed it into a living entity. You show me what is the reaction, chemical reaction, so that we can create life if we want. They cannot do that. They say, oh, our body is made of these chemicals. Okay, I'll give you all these chemicals. You produce life now? They cannot. So this is it not cheating? Then why do we place so much faith in this? Why do we place so much faith? It is stupid of us. They are anyway stupid. Coming up with stupid theories which don't make sense. And we are stupid enough to pay to learn those theories. We are going to universities paying humongous sums, going into debt for learning false theories about life. We are paying to get cheated. Not only we are getting cheated, we are paying to get cheated. Oh, I'm a professor in Harvard University. I earn so and so. Why you are earning so much? Because you're making, it's a scam. The education system is a scam. Vedic education is free. Yes, the Guru Dakshina is there where the disciple goes and gives whatever he can, but education was accessible for anyone who was qualified. Not like this, huge sums of money to get into some university. And then you learn wrong things. And then most importantly, you lose faith in God. You lose faith in God. That's the first thing that happens in universities and all these education systems. They try to teach everything without God. Contrast that with what we are learning now. We are learning about mind, we are learning about senses in a very, very logical, objective, and scientific way, and in connection with the Lord. This is perfect science. This is perfect education. We learn about philosophy, we learn about spiritual life. Spiritual life is higher than even psychology. Psychology is only the mind. The soul, the Atma, is the spirit. And that's what we are touching on. And then, of course, everything. We are learning about time, we are learning about astronomy, we are learning about geology. We're learning about all fields of science and philosophy and psychology and everything in relation to Krishna. How Krishna created all these things and how we are connected with all these things and how to use what we have in the right way. Because the same things can be wrongly used. Just few verses before this, all we were talking about how the mind is a great friend as well as enemy. So it is explained in this verse by Narada Muni, 1533. Amayo yascha bhutanam jayate yena suvrata tadeva hyamayam dravyam napunati chikitsitam. O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing? So the example here is that of milk and yogurt or curd. So milk, if you take too much, you will get diarrhea. But the same milk transformed into yogurt becomes the cure for the diarrhea. Same thing, but applied therapeutically. So, in the same way, the material nature, Maya, causes causes the senses to be attached and attracted, and in that way, take the soul away from Krishna. And let's see. I think we all know this verse. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. While contemplating, you see, this is how everything that exists, everything pulls our mind away. You see, while contemplating the objects of the senses, how does that happen? When the senses interact with the sense objects. For example, a beautiful woman passes, and then one immediately the eyes go, and then the mind gets attracted. Wow, that's a beautiful woman. So, you see, in this way, our mind is working. It is going here and there. And we smell something from a bakery. Oh, that's very nice smell. I want to eat something there. The senses are pulling us in each direction. So this is called contemplating the objects of the senses. The sense is giving the information to the mind. Mind is making decision. Okay, I want to eat this. I want to see that. I want to approach this girl. I want to do this. I want to do that. So these are the things. And this does not even happen always through physical objects. Now with the social media and all these video platforms, we have access to these things even with our phone. So while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. Sometimes we say, no, I'm not attached. That's a lie. That's a lie. Just doing something for example, if I am associating with smokers who are smoking, and I may smoke once in a while, say, then if I say that no, I'm not attached to smoking, I'm just once in a while, I just you're already attached. If you're not, then why are you even doing it? You should be attached to not doing it, because you should know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Not that everything goes, sometimes I smoke, sometimes I don't smoke, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't do this. But so what is your aim of life now then? What is your aim of life? What do you want to do? There has to be some do's and don'ts. There has to be some principles in your life, and there has to be meaning for that principles. For example, an honest man, he wouldn't go into drugs, at least in Singapore. A person who desires his own welfare will not go into drugs. Not that, sometimes I try, sometimes I don't. You say that and then you go to jail. So I can't say that, right? So here I have my priorities right, because why? I know there is a law that punishes me for not being right and not choosing the one way of life. Now, only because we do not know the laws that govern our life, we tend to think that, this is also okay, that is also okay, this is fine, that is fine. We don't know the law. If we know the law, then we know why we should not touch these things. And therefore, it is imperative for us to understand the laws, because ignorance of law is no excuse. At the time of death, you may believe or not believe, but Yamaraj will be waiting for us. This is all, who knows? You're just scaring people by citing all this afterlife. Who knows who has come back from? There are people who came back. For your information, there are people who came back and told. You can see those documentaries on YouTube. Krishna actually sometimes, to answer to these idiots, he makes some cases like this where the person actually remembers his past life. The most famous case in recent times, you can see a video everywhere, it is there on the internet, of this boy who was born in the 1980s, I think, 1990s, maybe 1990s. This boy, when he was 3 years old, he started talking about aeroplanes, and particularly jet fighters. And he knew exactly how jet fighters work. The cockpit, the entire thing he knows very, very well. Then, in playful way, he said, oh, this is that. Then the father and mother was like, how do you know? Yeah, I flew this before. When? Second World War. During the World War, he said. What? What are you talking about? Then Then they thought it was just a child. They did not know what to make of it, and then just ask questions every now and then. So what was your name then? Then he told the name, James. James. Actually, his current name also was James, like Bharat and Jada Bharat. James and Jada James. This time was not Jada really, but but a different surname, of course. Then they actually searched. In fact, he said when he could talk, when he would start talking, he would say exactly how he was shot down. He was actually shot down when he was flying the plane, and the plane went. And then the father asked, "Who shot you?" "The Japanese, of course," he answered. "Of course, the Japanese. I was an American pilot. Of course, the Japanese." So he answered like that. Then they were like spellbound, and they actually made a research and went into the records, and they found his platoon and his entire thing, and his name was also there. And then they tried to find out if anyone else in that group is still surviving, and they found one man who was surviving, and he remembered that James. So Krishna is, he engineers these situations to answer to these idiots who came back and told, well, you came back and told, you want to listen now? Want to listen or not? When we cited this just recently when we were talking to one lady in my office. That is his experience. We do not know. Huh? Still you want to disbelieve? That is his experience. My experience is I don't remember. So I go with my experience. Okay, you remain blind. You go ahead. Go to hell. So these things are real. Yeah. We have to be very strong about this. And if all these things are real, then there are things which we should do and should not do. We should be attached to not doing sinful activities. Why I should be, oh, it's okay, anything is okay. No, whatever Krishna says, we have to do. If Krishna says don't do that, then I should not do that. Otherwise, it's not that I'm attached to cigarette or I'm attached to alcohol or I'm attached to drugs or what. It is that I'm attached to my mind. Whenever my mind says whatever nonsense, I will just listen. Sometimes my mind says smoke and sometimes my mind says don't smoke. I'm just a servant, slave of my mind. I don't have any agency. I don't have any power over the mind. Goswami means I should be able to tell the mind, don't do it. Have the determination to tell the mind, not do it. But that we don't have. We become dāsa. We become servant of the senses. So, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops. Lust is not just the sexual lust. Lust means the atmendriya priti vancha. The desire to gratify my senses is lust. And from lust, anger arises. Because lust will not be satisfied entirely. And even if it is satisfied, it will hanker for more. That is also explained. What is that? 339, 38. It's like a fire which, the fuel just... The more fuel you add to a fire, the fire will become bigger and demand even more fuel to keep it alive. It will never... Analena cha, you see. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairena kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena analena cha. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So, anger arises, and then what happens? Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramshat buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down into the material pool. This is the process of falling down. How does it start? The mind. How does the mind get started on this journey? When the senses contemplate the sense objects and pass on the information to the mind. And then now the mind starts working. So all the gadgets that we have created are actually the mind's plans on how to enjoy things which otherwise could not have been enjoyed before. So make more facility for the mind to be always engaged. Did you find that verse? Huh? Yes. That is the one. Anivrittischa chetasam. Is it that one? Let's see. Failing to stop. You see that one? Anivrittihi. Failure to stop. You see, vikurvan kriyaya chadhir anivrittischa chetasam gatra swasthyam manobhrantam raja etair nishamaya. 11:25:17. You should discern the mode of passion by its symptoms. The distortion of the intelligence because of too much activity. This is exactly what is happening with social media. Distortion of intelligence because of too much activity. The inability of the perceiving senses to disentangle themselves from mundane objects. What is that? The inability of the perceiving senses to disentangle themselves from the mundane objects, an unhealthy condition of the working physical organs, and the unsteady perplexity of the mind. These are symptoms of mode of passion. So the thing that keeps us glued to the phone screen is the mode of passion. Unable to disentangle. So the mind is going in this way, but the same mind, the same senses, if we observe how the mind goes, you see the ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंस संगस्तेषु उपजायते संगात संजायते काम काम क्रोधोपजायते. If we know that sangat sanjayate kama, and that's where the whole thing goes this way, then that same sangat, if we do towards Krishna, then it goes this way, Krishna's way. The same mechanism, but opposite direction. With what we associate, that matters. Sangat sanjayate kama. And that's why in the whole two verses, sangat sanjayate kama is the most important phrase there. Because then we can choose which sangha I want to be with. So, that's why it is said, prasangam ajaram pasham atmanah kavayo viduhu sa eva sadhushu krito mokshadvaram apavritam. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. And of course, the 323:55. Sango yah samsriter hetu rasatsu vihito dhiya sa eva sadhushu krito nihsangatvaya kalpate. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. And this is also said by Rishabdev. Mahatsevam dvaramahur stamodvaram yoshitam sangi sangam mahantaste samachittah prashanta vimanyavah suhridah sadhavo ye. Mahatsevam dvaramahur tamodvaram yoshitam sangi sangam. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to the highly advanced spiritual personalities, whether impersonalists or devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and they are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and work for the benefit of everyone. They don't behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. So if we associate with such Mahatmas, then ahur vimuktis, we get moksha dvaram apavritam. This is the door of liberation is open. The other way, the door to hell is open. So we have to understand how the mind is working, and the mind's servants are the senses. So our knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses, if they are engaged with Krishna, Like we like to hear so many topics. We like to hear about politics. All right, politics is here. We have politics here. We want sports. Okay, sports are here. So many sports. Kshatriyas, they used to play. In fact, the video games now they play, they die and again reborn and die again reborn. Where is it coming from? Where is that idea coming from? See, none of the things that man has created, they can create out of thin air. Even thin air is also air. You know, they have to borrow concepts from Krishna's creation. They cannot create something which is not in Krishna's creation. So that video game where you have multiple lives, where is it coming from, that idea? Because we do have multiple lives. So anyway, how all this works? So mind and senses, the senses are acting or receiving knowledge. So these things must be engaged in Krishna's service. If you want to hear many topics, let's hear about Krishna. And when we hear about Krishna, it's not that we are unaware of the other topics. We are aware of the other topics more than even the materialist who is ruminating on those topics. For example, there are, sex experts. They call them sexperts. They will teach you dating tips and how to have sex, and these kind of experts are there. But they do not know sex and its effects as well as the devotees know, although they are away from that. And in fact, because they know it very well, they are away from that. They try to go away from it because they know it is actually a path to hell. So they are studying that subject, but they don't know that as well as the devotees do. And here the knowledge is free. Sometimes people ask, why didn't you finish your university? You could have finished university, then people will respect. So do you mean to say without university people won't respect? If you talk sense, people will respect. And why should I even worry about respect? But if that's what you're looking for, if you talk sense, people will respect. You don't have to be from a university. And even if you come from a university, if you talk nonsense, people won't respect. So it is what did you understand? That is what matters. And I always tell them that is one thing. Now, point number 2 is why I should go to university, which is a low class education. I have already a high class education. The Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatam. I am not going for higher education because I have highest education. Why should I go for higher education? This is the highest education. Higher is lower. Highest is higher. Why should I demote myself? You learn. You don't come and try to preach to me that to go and learn university. Your university is rubbish, first of all. You come here. That's what we tell. Go back to that. 9:30. So you see, in which psychological department has analyzed the senses to be 10? They don't even consider the senses. This is a much more fuller meaning of senses than we get in science. Science senses only when we receive. Here senses are also when we interact outwardly. So that makes a lot of sense actually. So now the false ego is also a field of activity of the mind. All these are the field of activity of the mind. The mind is the representative of the soul. Representation of the soul in this material world. So you see, the more subtle element, which is the soul, is represented by a little bit gross element, which is the mind, which is still subtle for our experience. And that mind is represented by the body that we have, which is like if I am angry in the mind, it shows in my body. The speech becomes high volume, eyebrows all get frowned. So there is manifestation. It is actually coming from a very subtle place, but then it translates and is represented by the proxies or the external thing. So, what is subtle is projected by the gross matter. In our projection, when we know a projector, right? You know a projector. Now, a projector does the kind of opposite thing, which is, suppose now you see what is happening in the live stream, or what is happening here, what is on my screen is being projected there. And this is me, this is the gross body here, but that is projected subtly on the screen of the people who are watching. So the projection is from gross to subtle that we have deduced. But subtle to gross projections. But actually everything happens from subtle to gross. The mind is a representation of the soul, the body is a representation of, as I say, the face is the index of the mind. So it is a representation of the mind, and that's how everything is getting done here. So everything is projected in a gross way, that which is subtle. Of course, we can go into a little bit, but anyway. What knowledge theorists, they say, is the details are the real things, and the concepts we create in our mind of those things are abstract concepts. But that's not the fact. The reality actually starts from the so-called abstract. We say abstract because with our senses we cannot perceive. But actually reality lies there. Then that is expressed through our body that we have. And we expand our false ego. And you see how it is said. These 11 things are there, the mind and the 10 senses. Then the interactions of these things with the objects creates hundreds, thousands and millions of transformations. Just like one trunk of a tree branches into, like, maybe say a handful of branches, big boughs, which are big thick branches, and then they further. If you take a big banyan tree or any tree, it has thousands and millions, if it is that big, of branches, twigs, leaves and fruits and flowers and everything. But it's starting from one trunk. So how it is diversifying into so many. Niranam santi sahasrashaha. You know, that verse is there. Our mind is getting embroiled in thousands and thousands and millions of topics. Here, you see, Shrotavyadini Rajendra Niranam santi sahasrashaha apashyatam atmatattvam griheshu grihamedhinam. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. They have many subject matters. But the one who is interested in the self-realization, who is awake to the Atma Tattvam, the reality of the Atma, he has one subject, which is Krishna. And because if I want to understand each individual twig and leaf and thing of the plant, that is a very ineffective way of understanding. If I understand the seed and the trunk and the origin of it, then I understand everything of it. Like, for example, our seed, our DNA, for example, tells many things of how our body is. And if you know a little more subtle astrology, when a person, if you know the time, because time is also an ingredient, location is also an ingredient. Not only the ingredients of the body are ingredients, time is also an ingredient, no? So there is also a material element. So we are not considering that when we only consider DNA. Because with DNA, you cannot explain why a person is suffering, for example, why a person is enjoying, why a person is rich, why one is poor. DNA doesn't tell you that. That means there are things which are beyond DNA that are ingredients of the body. Time is one of them. So astrology is one of them. So then we will know more about. So then we can know what kind of a person this is and everything. An estimate can be made. Of course, those who, as one becomes more and more powerful, they can predict even more accurately and more scientifically. Yeah. So, if we know the how the principle of everything, how it works, then we can explain everything. So similarly, that's why it is said, Yo mam evam asammodho janat purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. And he does not only know everything, he then comes to the point of acting. Sa sarvavid bhajati mam. Krishna says he will come to the conclusion of worshipping me once he knows everything. Sarvabhavena bharata. With full attention, with full devotion. Because it is fully backed by knowledge, it is fully backed by all the acharyas who are great professors of the science of spiritual life. And they have endorsed this path, they have gone through this, just like material scientists cite Einstein or whoever. So we have acharyas that are way more than Einstein. Who is Einstein compared to those acharyas? So once we try to understand these things, if we similarly multiply our activities, just like hundreds, thousands, millions, if we have all these kinds of engagements in relation with Krishna, thousands and millions, then our mind is more and more enriched with Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, our mind is degraded by material consciousness. The same thing, therapeutically applied. So we should increase our domain of Krishna conscious activities. We have to minimize materialistic activities. If I'm not convinced, I should start with the activity of hearing. I have to give this science a chance. Or rather, I should give myself a chance by listening to the science. Yeah. Because by not doing it, I'm denying myself the opportunity to perfect my life. So therefore, we have to understand this analytically in minute detail. That's why it is said, if you are interested in logic and argument, then apply it to the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chitta Pava Chamatkar. Adi. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Koroho Vichar. Vichar Korele Chitte Pabe Chamatkar. If you are indeed interested in logic and argument, kindly apply to the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you do so, you will find it to be strikingly wonderful. It is actually true. If we apply our analytical understanding and logic to the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how does it work? So now we have learned analytically that how the mind works, how the senses are, and how it is keeping us in this world. So in this way, we understand the mind. So how difficult it is to come out of this, right? It's very difficult to come out of such entanglement of hundreds and millions of activities. But so it requires the undoing of all that requires many lifetimes of practice. But such difficult process is simplified by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is so powerful that within this one lifetime, within in fact not even one lifetime, you can see people who have come from very sinful backgrounds. They have taken to Krishna consciousness and become devotees within a matter of months, years. How fast it is working, what happened for trillions of years was undone in a matter of months. How? Mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not come, Yadi Gaurana hoito, tabe ki hoito. Song was sung. If Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not come, what would have happened? Kemone dharitam de. How would we have maintained our bodies simply running like a dog after sense gratification? So he has come, and not only he has come, he has sent his servants, he sent his Goswamis to write scriptures to guide us, and everything is there for us. We did not lift a finger. Krishna gave everything to us, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he sent his dearmost servitor, Prabhupada. And he gave us the association of devotees. So much he has done. Although we did not deserve it. If you see analytically, if you see a judge, what does a judge do? He analyzes the whole case. You go to hell. You go suffer in the jail for like life imprisonment. Right? That is analytical. So now, if we have to be analyzed for all the wrongdoings we have done, we don't deserve what we have gotten. We don't deserve. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu still gave it. Daya karo vichar. Vichar karo chitte pabe chamatkar. So is this not wonderful? Absolute criminal comes to the courtroom and the judge says, okay, you take this, now you go back to Godhead. Enjoy eternal life. Where is such a judge? So if we analyze everything like this, we will see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is most wonderful. So all this analytical study of how the mind works, intelligence works, it is not to like major in the minor. Oh, this is how mind works, that's how mind works. And then, no. What is it supposed to lead to? And how everything is tying to the point of Krishna consciousness. So that's the whole point. So any questions or comments on this topic? Any questions? No? Alright, we stop here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.